All right, y'all. We're gonna keep this thing moving. I've broken up this video probably into 2 or 3 parts, just depending how fast I can get through these episodes. So, in the first video, we were introduced to Jeffrey, who is the house manager. We were introduced to Aunt Viv, who is an art instructor and an artist. We were introduced to Ashley, but no more than just her being like a little side kick right now. We were introduced to, Lord, what's the oldest? Hillary. I am so sorry. We were introduced to Hillary. Hillary is a social media maven. She is a blogger, and she's in that food part of the blogging. So, and then we were introduced to Uncle Phil. Uncle Phil is a lawyer who is also running for a district attorney. So let's just get into it. We're going to continue through here. Remember I talked about the tensions between Carlton and Will, particularly the mess that went on in the locker room with the N-word and what have you. So the mom has basically told Carlton and Will that they need to get along. So Carlton introduces Will to his clique, his crew. It doesn't go that well. Backing up, because one particular thing that I think I missed was the fact that you remember when I talked about the fundraiser for Mr. Banks, Uncle Phil. Well, at that fundraiser, we are introduced to Lisa. Now, Lisa is a young lady that dated Carlton back in the day. They broke up, I guess maybe over the summer or whenever they broke up. Carlton still has feelings for her, but Carlton doesn't recognize how to get back with her. I think there was some tensions between that. But anyway, she has introduced herself to Will, and her and Will are clicking. Her and Will are clicking to the point that when there was a party that Carlton was invited to by this young his best friend, young white guy named Connor. Connor is the guy that was in the locker room who was standing above everybody, inward this, inward that, but they were singing the song, right? So that apparently him and Connor and Carlton are like this because they're both on the lacrosse team. They are like this. So Carlton invites Will to the party. He gets to the party. You can tell that Carlton is the big man, him and Connor. If Carlton says something, it pretty much goes. It's all of that kind of dynamic. Well, the only person that's friendly to Will at this party is Lisa. So he is over there vibing with Lisa. Now, at this party, Carlton has taken some lines. Even to the point where Connor had come and kind of stopped him. He's like, Connor came over to Carlton while he was doing, Carlton says it's Xanax, but it is presenting like cocaine. I'm just going to say. So if you hear me say cocaine, that's what I'm meaning. Because Carlton claims that he is, he's just taking Xanax, but it is presenting like cocaine. He's chopping it up with the card. He's snorting it through the straw. Everything is presenting cocaine to me. So anyway, so Carlton is he ain't no little. He's tweaking. He's a little high, and his emotions are running high. And because his emotions are running high, he sees Will and Lisa dancing. And at some point, you know how they dancing and they do kiss. They kiss. So that upsets Carlton. So Carlton runs over there to Will, and he just pushes Will into the water. And Lisa and Carlton got to arguing. Why would you do that? Da 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 da. And I guessed Will is just sinking to the bottom, and I'm like, Will must not can swim, because he would have just struggled, and they would think, but Will is literally just sinking down to the bottom. And he's having this dream, this daydream, this dream in his head about him being on the throne with the crown and all this other stuff. He's sinking to the ground. Next thing you know, you see Lisa's jumped in and she's gotten Will out of the water. So it is obvious that Will could not swim. When Will got out of that water and he realized that he was okay, honey, he saw red. And he went to whooping up on, he went to saying something to Carlton. I know he hit Connor and he hit Carlton and they got to fighting and all this whoop-de-whoop-de-whoop. So they get home. There is a video out showing Carlton and Will fighting because, everybody got their cameras out. So Uncle Phil and Aunt Viv are livid. And, Carlton is like, they're talking to Will. They're basically chastising both of them. But Carlton takes it like they're taking Will's side. And they're like, you pushed him in the water, which was right. Carlton, you pushed that man in the water and you didn't even know if he could swim right. You made the assumption that he could swim and he could not swim. I mean, you could, if him and Lisa would have sat there arguing, they literally would have forgotten if Carlton would have been able to kind of yoke Lisa up by her arm and walk her away, Will would have died because there would have been nobody that would have jumped in that water to help him. And then what would happen is everybody's got the video to show him pushing Will into the water. Anyway, so we get to the next day because Carlton gets grounded. Basically, Uncle Phil and Aunt Viv have just said, "Now look, y'all are acting crazy. Y'all are acting up. We're not fixing to have this. You all, we try to get y'all to go along to get along. But we're not going to have, with Uncle Phil being in the middle of this campaign, they can't have all this mess." The Connor's mom was wanting to have Will arrested because he had Connor, but Uncle Phil and Aunt Viv, they swift like that. They like, wait a minute, you all threw a party on your premise with alcohol being present, alcohol and drugs. They don't know Carlton is using drugs, I don't think, but with alcohol being present, there was no supervision. So they could be in trouble as well, but there's supposed to be some like tit for tat. They're not going to call the police. And so basically they're not going to get in trouble for this fight, but this fight is on the internet. And that's that thing about stuff like that. These things get out on the internet and they're permanent. Unless you have someone who can, you could pay for somebody to scrub, your video from, I guess, like a public view. The video will still be on the internet, but it will be made more difficult to find it. You know what I mean? Anyway, that happens. They get to school. So this is his first day of school. Carlton does not drive him to school, so Aunt Viv tells him he can take her car or the other car that they have. So Will takes that car. He gets called car. He goes to school. He knows where his class is. He goes to class. He's sitting in the class and ain't nobody there. And he doesn't understand what's going on. Mind you, too, Will is having some forms of PTSD. He's still flashing back to what happened on the field. on the court back in Philly. So he's sitting there, and then the school security guard comes like, "What are you doing here? Where's your ID? Where your pass?" So Will freaks out and he runs. And he doesn't realize that there is a school assembly and Carlton is giving a speech at the school assembly. So when he runs in the middle of the junior year school assembly. And Carlton takes this time, to, I guess Carlton was embarrassed at the party. So Carlton takes the time to embarrass Will in front of everybody at the school assembly. So Carlton has his, he's a Sith Lord, so he's gotten his revenge. And throughout all these shows, I may make reference to Marvel shows. I may make reference to Star Wars. If you are not familiar, you can go back on my reviews of Hawkeye. You can go back on my reviews of What If. You can go back on my review of the first half of the Book of Boba Fett and kind of get caught up on those references. I do I am a Marvel gal and a Star Wars gal, so I will be reviewing those types of shows on my channel as well. I stopped the Book of Boba Fett because it was, whoo child, it slowed down and brought back up, so I just felt like I was just gonna watch it and not try to review it, the rest of it. So if you all were into that, and I stopped, I apologize. But let's get back to what we're talking about right now, which is Bel Air. Did I? Ooh, child, I'm just talking. You know when I get my coffee and I just get to talking. Keep your head up. That's episode 2. So like I said, we're mixing in episode 1, 2, and 3. So right now we're basically in episode 2, which is called Keep Your Head Up, and we will be going into episode 3, which is Yamakra, South Carolina or North Carolina. Anyway, so that happens. Will is at school. He's doing what he needs to do to try to fit in. He does go to the basketball coach. He wants to play basketball because the thing of it is, everybody just knows that Will is there to get a better education. No one is really sure about what Will is actually doing there. They don't know what about going on in Philly. Apparently, Uncle Phil has called in a lot of favors. He's trying to keep that low key while he runs for district attorney. And he doesn't want all that information out that he has called in some favors so that his nephew can get out of jail and that he can be there and live in California. Meanwhile, back in Philly, Will's best friend from Philly, we find out, has been shot. So we find out that he's been shot. Will is upset about that. Will goes and he meets a friend in algebra class that plays basketball. He wants to play basketball. He meets up with the coach. The coach tells him he has to try out. Will is okay with that. He goes to he talks with the young man that he is friends with in the algebra class, and he kind of just gives him the 411. Like, coach doesn't like a lot of showboating and celebrates. He wants y'all to get the basics and all of that and keep your grades up. So if you do that and you do that in tryouts, it'll make sense. So we just follow Will working on to do that. So he calls Jazz over to come help him, to play ball. But again, Will has some, I'm saying it's PTSD. I did not diagnose Will, but that's what it seems like. He's having flashbacks because he's on the court. He hears the ball. He thinks about being slammed on the ground. He hears the noise. He thinks about hearing the police. I think they hear a police thing and he gets all jumpy. So Jazz is like, wait a minute, hold up. Because we're here to help you with your basketball. Jazz is like, you ain't got to tell me everything, but you got to tell me something. Because I can tell there's something wrong with you. And so Will confides into Jazz what's going on. And Jazz is like, I understand what you're going through because I've been in some trouble as well. And he's like, you got to figure out what you want to do. You want to continue to dwell on it or you want to play basketball? Will wants to play basketball. He says, you're just going to have to find a way to work through that. So Will goes to basketball practice. He continues to have that PTSD, but he remembers. He does have a conversation with Uncle Phil. Uncle Phil tells him, "Look, I don't know what you're going through," but he basically tells him, "You got to get your head in the game. You got to figure out what it is that you want. Go for it. Don't let that stuff sidetrack you. Do what you need to do." And we also kind of learn that, again, we talked about in the first episode, Uncle Phil seems to have a connection with Will because I think he sees himself in Will, to the chagrin of Carlton. So there is some dynamics on that. So while they're at school, we're gonna just finish up Will for right now, and then we're gonna move on to Hillary. While Will is at school, he meets up with Lisa. He's telling Lisa, I can't seem to shake people, not, from what happened the other night. So, I guess she went around and was telling everybody that he was a good kid and all this other stuff. But it sounds like, in doing that, she had to kind of tell the truth about what Carlton did, because Carlton did push him. Carlton wanted to set the narrative as that it was just a little misunderstanding, they were okay. No, it's not a misunderstanding when you push somebody in the water and he almost drowns. That's not a misunderstanding. There were some severe consequences that could have happened from that. So Carlton, around lunchtime, he steps up to Will. You and Lisa are concocting. Carlton says, you and Lisa, he's talking to Will, are concocting this little thing to make me the bad guy and everything like that in front of my friends and stuff like that. Carlton burrows up to him like, hey, what's up, bro? We gonna fight. And so Will is like, I'm the odd man out. He's like, if that's what you want to do, because, you win, I lose, you lose. Either way, it's going to come off on me. So he took Uncle Phil's advice about not being so prideful, and sometimes you just got to, Uncle Phil didn't say this directly, but basically, you just got to walk away. Sometimes the people can't see you because you're so busy trying to be so prideful. And sometimes you got to, what he said, I'm paraphrasing now, is that a man will think through his actions, because he has to think about what he has to, what it'll gain him and what it'll make, what you will lose. So instead of you just acting on emotion, you need to think through what's going on. Look around, think through what's going on, and then act. And that's what Will basically did. He realizes that if he fought Carlton, even though Carlton challenged him, and by all rights, because I think Carlton pushed him, he could have swung on Carlton and whooped his tail. He told him that. I could beat your tail. He says, but I have to think through the consequences on me would be worse, because I'm already the odd person out. I've already hit Connor in the face and fought Connor in the locker room. I've hit Connor at his home, and Connor comes up with this restraining order that his uncle, who is the judge, got for him. So Will is already behind the fact that he's got these charges down in Philly. He can't afford to get no charges here in BEL AIR. So he backs down and he walks away. So Carlton feels like he's won the day. So let's go on over to Hillary. Now, you remember last time Viv got Hillary an opportunity to be a food stylist, or to, I think that's what they call them. Y'all let me know what they call them, for this magazine. So she prepares her meal, honey. She's got some collard greens, some cabbage, and something else she had on that plate, child. And it was styled and everything like that. They ate the food. They liked the food. But they were basically telling her, like, you would not make it too spicy. We've got to, their target audience, meaning middle America white women, might not like the spicy food. And she's like, well, that's my signature spice mix and all this other stuff. And they were basically wanting her to tone down who she was so they can fit in with what they wanted. And Hillary kind of, she understood the wording, because basically what happens a lot of time is people don't, there's a thing called overt racism and covert racism, and overt prejudice and covert prejudice. And sometimes the prejudice and the prejudice exacerbates the racism. Okay? And what I mean by that is that their core audience is white women within their 30s and 40s, living an average lifestyle, but wanting to have this haute couture lifestyle. So they want to be able to do these recipes and do all these things to make them fancy. But they're looking at, because they called her food basic. That was the one thing that they called. They called her food basic, too spicy, in that she would have to and Hillary's brand is, I want to take food, because she said it to her father, I don't know if it was this episode or the last episode, that her brand is, she wants to make good food, but without having to have all these apparatuses, that you can do some good cooking without having to have a waffle maker, a panini press, and all of these different things, but it'd be high end, using good quality ingredients, understanding techniques, and all those other things. So that's what she wants to do. But Haute Cuisine wants to be able to do that. I guess their sponsors want them to be able to sell those types of gadgets and stuff like that. So it was meshing. What happened was Hillary went, Aunt Viv's sorority sister got Hillary this chance. And Hillary went on her social media and basically called them out for what they were doing. Aunt Viv is that middle ground person. She understands they did something like that, but she feels like there's a way to say it without saying it. Just like people who have a certain prejudice about you won't say, I don't like you because you're black, I don't like you because of this. They will say it in such a way that you understand that's what they're saying, but they'll go throw their hands up. That's not what I meant. That's not what I said. The implications behind what they say are clear. And so that's where sometimes the confusion comes in, because they didn't actually come out and call you the N-word, or they didn't actually come out and say that they were snubbing their nose down at, who you are and your culture and what you do, but that's what they've said, implied. I know there is nuances to all of this, and a lot of times we like to play dumb behind the nuance, but it's a whole nother thing. So Hillary calls her out on it. Let me see. So Hillary calls the company out on it on her social media. Oh, where are we? Because there was a lot of things jumbled up. I talked about Will getting on the basketball team. Hillary did that. Well, Viv is telling Hillary, you've had a couple of years. You need to figure out what it is that you're going to do, because I don't think the money and stuff that they spend, they're going to continue to do that. Because, Hillary's a daddy's girl, so I think that daddy would probably spend that money. But Viv is like, nah, you need to figure it out. If you're going to go to school, fine, go to school. If you're not, then you're going to have to do something. And I'm surprised Hillary just didn't go to culinary school. Because that would all tie into what she's doing, and it would lend credence and credibility to where she's trying to go. So let's fast forward, because we're probably going to get into episode 3 at this point. Ooh, child, yes. So we find that I told you that Will's friend has been shot. Will's mom calls Aunt Viv when she finds out that he had been in this fight, and she's kind of talking to her sister about that. And Aunt Viv's like, let me handle it. Things are fine. Let me handle it. And Will's mom's like, I didn't want him to go out there, and then he gets into some more trouble. She says he's having problems adjusting, so he's gonna have to do some adjusting. Let them handle it. But she was pulling that big sister card, and again, it's something about Will's father that Uncle Phil and Aunt Viv, either they've done something or something has been kept secret that they claim that they owe Will. So it's something interesting. So basically, we will end up with, we're going to go into Yamakra. Uncle Phil he had an interview on Big Boy's radio station, and he finds that he's not connecting with the black audience. And a lot of times that has to do with the more money you make, the more distance you are from certain elements of who you are. And he's making money, and he hasn't realized how much distance that he has placed from this. So he makes the decision that he's going to go to his fraternity's crawfish boil. that they have every year. And so he invites Carlton and he invites Will. But this is something that they must go to every year because Carlton was looking forward to going because he wanted to talk with one of Uncle Phil's frat brothers about an internship that he wanted. And Will was just going because, Uncle Phil said he was going, basically. So they get there and Uncle Phil is really honing in on Reverend somebody. And Reverend somebody is the pastor of one of the biggest black churches in LA. Apparently, Uncle Phil and him, they're frat brothers. They used to be tight, but they have. I guess Uncle Phil hasn't been part of these things in a minute. I don't think he came to the last one. He may have come to the year before last, but I don't think he came to the last one. I'm not really sure, but him and Reverend are not gelling. And apparently, Uncle Phil's line name was Yamakra. He's a member of A5A. And they have all the alphas there and all that. Just side note. Are the alphas going to be mad that they were being portrayed on a national television show like the AKAs were mad when they were portrayed on Insecure? Or no? What's going to happen, black folk? And y'all gonna get mad, but it is what it is. But a lot of times that's just a women to men thing. I'm quite sure that there won't be a rumble in the jungle with the A5As versus the AKAs. And like I said, I'm not gonna get into all of that. But I'm just interested to see if there's going to be a rumble in the jungle about all of that. But anyway, Uncle Phil is there with his frat brothers and line brothers, and everybody was talking about Uncle Phil, how he was the best stepper on their team and everything like that. He ruled the step shows. So we get there. Uncle Phil has there's a frat brother in the yellow shirt, the little short sleeve polo shirt. He asks Will and Carlton to help him with the tables and chairs. So Carlton is honed in on this other guy. He's like, I'm waiting for a brother so-and-so to come because I want to talk to him about the internship. And so when the guy asks Carlton and everything to help, Will is helping. He's like, Carlton, you're not going to help? And he's like, no, I'm waiting for such and such and such. You could do the tables, you could do the chair. He's just being snooty about the whole situation. He wants what they can give them, but he doesn't want to give anything in return because he thinks that, oh, well, just because I am Carlton and I am Phil Banks' son, y'all going to give it to me. He gets there, he sits around, and he doesn't move a table. He doesn't do anything. He sits in the thing. Will peeps that Uncle Phil is having problems talking with this reverend. So Will is like, Unc, what's going on? Why won't he talk to you? Da-da-da-da this and da-da-da-da-da. And he's like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. So in the meantime, there is a conversation between Uncle Phil and the frat brother, the reverend, and the reverend just lets him have it. Like, you've had frat brothers that needed some help. You weren't there. You've had communities that needed some help. You weren't there. But they were there. You weren't present. And he just schools him and lets him know. And now you come here and you want my vote, a la like Carlton. So you could say that him and Carlton are he's taught Carlton that. And so he had to just take his comeuppance. And then Will, seeing that and then hearing the fact that his uncle was a good stepper or whatever, he goes up and he takes the mic. He starts fiddling and playing and doing some stuff around the mic. They're like, boy, if you don't get your butt off that mic. But he's doing that to goat his uncle to come up on the stage and then say, oh, I thought you was a stepper. Can you do this? Da-da-da-da-da. And so then Yamakra comes out. He does the stepping. They get out there. They do they put on a little show. And that smooths, it melts the ice a little bit with the brothers. And the reverend is like, I'll support your campaign. I can't tell you that I'm going to get the people to vote for you, but I will support it. You're my frat brother. I see you, but you do know that you're going to have to start doing some stuff in order for me to continue to be as open to you as well. So actually, Will actually helped Uncle Phil in a way that Carlton didn't. So Carlton finds his person. And boy, Carlton is, I mean, I'm telling you, if Carlton becomes a lawyer or a business person, baby, Carlton has a gift. He was just talking and doing all of this stuff, and it was all for naught, because the guy who he was wanting to speak to, the funeral home man that ran all the funeral homes, he had stepped down from the position a month ago. So the person who he needed to talk to was brother so-and-so with the short sleeve polo shirt on. But that guy has seen Carlton not do anything that he wanted him to do. So Carlton realizes he didn't pay attention. He didn't read the room right. And so he was so focused on what Carlton wanted, he didn't see the big picture. The big picture was, you should have been talking to them frat brothers and all that other stuff, and to get the information. And had you had mentioned it before, you would have found out that the guy that your father sent to help was the guy who you needed to talk to. Well, since he realizes that he wasn't going to be able to talk to this man and get this internship, he decides, oh, I don't want that internship. It doesn't mean anything to me. When that wasn't the truth. It did mean something to him. And so instead of him talking to his father and saying, I think I slipped up, could you talk to brother so-and-so, da-da-da-da-da, he doesn't do any of those things, because I'm quite sure Uncle Phil would have made it his business to do that. So Uncle Phil and Will are bonding. So they get ready, because what happens is, now that Will is there, they usually go to Carlton's games. So since Will was there, they were like, well, we're going to spend half the game at Will and then the other half at Carlton. So what happens was, they don't start Will. Will doesn't play. So I think it was into the second quarter that they started playing, and then Will started putting those numbers up on the board. He started playing. He starts putting up all these numbers and everything like that. So once that started happening, Aunt Viv is like, hey, we need to go to Carlton's game. And Uncle Phil's like, well, 5 minutes. And they ended up staying through the whole game. Now, while they're at the game, Aunt Viv tells Miss Hillary, baby, your time is up. You're going to have to do what you need to do about your passion and stuff like that, because we're not going to continue to finance your little lifestyle the way it is. If you're passionate about food and eating and stuff like that, then you need to get on and do what you need to do. So we're going to see what Hillary has to do. Well, Carlton is playing, and his head's not in the game because he's upset, because he knows his parents are at Will's game and they're not at his game. He's upset. Baby, he fouls or whatever they do in lacrosse, and he got put out of the game. So with him being put out of the game, he goes into the gym and he sees his family just having a good old time with Will, watching Will and everything. Mind you, too, when he came off the field, he did him another line. So he's high at this point, and then he leaves upset. We don't see where Carlton goes. So ended up, Will's team wins the game. Everybody is happy. This. So then at the end, what happens is it pans back to Philly. And you remember Rashad? Well, I'm going to say Will has probably been there a couple of weeks or maybe a couple of months, because it was to the point where his mother sent all of his stuff over there. Well, Will is doing good, and he has gotten a write-up in, a basketball magazine, because you remember when the show first came on, the guy the street guy that challenged him in the first place, well, he still continues with the basketball man. He sees Will, because at this point they think Will is in Philly hiding, not coming out. They don't know where he's at. Now they realize that he's over in Bel Air. He's over in California. So I don't know if Rashad is going to go over there, or he's going to send somebody over there to get at Will, because he is very upset with Will about Will hitting him and embarrassing him and all this other stuff. Because, some folks, they don't know how to let things go. See, he's looking at his street cred and how people, because who he is and his name, he don't want nobody to get out there and think that he can't handle any business. So we're going to have to watch his tail. So I don't know what's going to happen for the next episode. Now they dropped 3 this past weekend. So I am unsure of which day that it comes out. So I will figure that out next week, this coming week. So y'all let me know what y'all think about this. I think it's good. My eye is still on old Jeffrey because, like I said before, Jeffrey gives me that he can rumble with the big boys. He gets me that he keeps his ear to a lot of different things. We hadn't seen anything of Ashley in the past, since the first episode. We hadn't really seen her other than in the psychic, so I don't know if there's anything going on with Ashley. Carlton is high, so I don't know what he's going to do within this state. And they're probably going to find out that Carlton has a drug problem. Speaking of drugs, what I did not mention was Connor planted some drugs on Will. Because you remember they had the pool party. And then, Carlton got his revenge by embarrassing him in front of the whole school. So Connor, because Will had popped him a good one, decides what he's going to do is he's going to plant drugs on Will. He plants drugs on Will. The security comes up to Will and says, I want to search your bag. They search the bag. They found the drugs, and Will gets suspended. And that was affecting his basketball because he was able to play basketball because it got settled. And here's what happened. So Carlton went to Connor and asked him what he did. Why would he do that? And he says, you realize that we're going to get in trouble because, my parents are going to find out. Where old cocky Connor was like, well, it serves him right. He's going to be suspended and stuff like that. And he's like, Carlton is like, you don't know my parents. My parents are going to get down to the bottom of this. He says, number one, my father has made CEOs cry, and he has litigated cases in front of very, very powerful people, and he didn't bend. And Carlton said, and my mama is a black mama, and you do not want to get on the bad side of her. So we need to make this right. Because what was happening, unbeknownst to them, Connor and Carlton, was that the school hadn't checked the cameras. They just decided that the drugs was found in the bag, and they didn't check the cameras. So they're going back to check the cameras. And if they check the cameras, they're going to find out that Connor put those drugs in Will's bag. So what happened was Connor got somebody to say they saw a person who didn't go to the school by Will's bag, and they saw him sit by the bag, and they saw him manipulate the bag that possibly he could have put it in there. So he had a witness say that, so that the school wasn't going to check the cameras. The school was just going to go by what the witness said, and that got Will in the clear. But baby, I don't know what's going to happen when Rashad, the drug dealer, comes down there and starts causing issues. But we'll see. Like I said, baby, my new show, I like this. I like good drama. What are you all thinking about the show? Please hit that like button. Leave me a comment. Tell me what you think about the show. If you're already subscribed, thank you so much. Please tell your friends, your co-workers, your relatives, and the people that you can't stand that I'm over here making these videos. For those of you all that are watching, I see that you're watching, and you have come back. Hit the subscribe button. It's down here. It's down here. It's down here. Hit the subscribe button. I'd appreciate it. And also, when you hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you'll be notified when I do these videos. Y'all, we are going to push through with this show. I'm excited about it. So, let me see. Is there anything else I wanted to impart to you? Oh, I've got a pop culture chat that's coming up. It's not, you won't see my face. It's podcast style. So I've got that coming up. So you look out for that. And that's basically it. And as always, people,